including Jake the Snake Roberts, the Barbarian, the Model Rick Martel, the Berserker, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Nasty Boy Sags, Repo Man, Sergeant Slaughter, alleged real world champion Ric Flair, Hercules, Colonel Mustafa, the Macho Man Randy Savage, Skinner, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, Haku, Shawn Michaels, the Warlord, El Matador, Sid Justice, IRS, Nikolai Volkov, the Texas Tornado, Virgil, the Undertaker, the Big Boss Man, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Superfly Snuka, and the immortal Hulk Hogan. It's time to rumble! It's time for the Royal Rumble!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Memories. I am Wax the Brain Hussein and I'm joined by Fash the $1 Million Fan. Fash, it's finally that moment that we've been talking about for weeks, if not months. It's the Royal Rumble 1992 watch along.
I have been very excited about this, as have you. And yeah, we finally got here. It feels like we've done so much which has led up to this event outside of our two WrestleMania specials, which I really enjoyed. But, you know, this is our first watch along. It's our first listen only show. And it is many people say arguably the best Royal Rumble match ever. So yeah, totally pumped up for this.
Yeah, I'm excited to just jump into it and start with the Rumble very soon. But before that, let's very quickly touch upon the undercard. We're probably not going to show it all that much respect because we want to watch the Rumble. But Fash, you've got some thoughts on or just the results of the
yeah, let me rewind it a little bit. Let's just remind everybody, and they can catch all these bits in the archives. But, you know, as I say, we've been leading up to a lot of things going into this event, and that's been Ric Flair coming into the WWE Survivor Series this Tuesday in Texas, and just taking everyone back to this Tuesday in Texas. At the end of that, there was a controversial ending once again in the Undertaker Hulk Hogan WWF title match. Post that event, Jack Tunney essentially vacates the title and says the winner of the Royal Rumble will become the WWF champion, which leads us to this event and a very star-studded 30-man Royal Rumble. But yeah, the undercard was nothing to write home about. It was extremely mediocre, a really weird one, because we had tag team match after tag team match, it felt like. So the opener is probably historic because it's the pay-per-view debut of Owen Hart. Although he'd been in WWE before as the Blue Blazer, this is him as under his real name. He's teaming up with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. They are the New Foundation, and they open the event taking on the Orient Express, who you'll remember also opened Royal Rumble 1991 and had a great match with the Rockers. This match is pretty good. The crowd's into it, and ultimately the New Foundation win when the Anvil launches the Rocket onto one of the Orient Express members and they get the pinfall. So he uses a literal rocket launcher. The second match is probably the most memorable match of the night, as opposed to actually being a great match. It's Roddy Piper taking on the Mountie for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, there's a backstory to this, which we can discuss as we're watching the Rumble, but the end point is that Roddy Piper defeats the Mountie and becomes the Intercontinental Champion. And this is his first title in WWF, WWE, which is just extraordinary when you think about it. He's one of the guys that started off the whole rock and wrestling boom of initially of the 80s. And then there's more tag team stuff happening here. I think the next one is the Bushwhackers against the Beverly Brothers. Absolutely nothing match, which the Bushwhackers lost, not surprisingly. And then
somehow they got 15
I knew
minutes.
you were going to jump in. I knew you weren't going to let me just...
Somehow they had 15 minutes to show their worth, which was a complete waste of time. But yeah, sorry, carry on, Fash.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I thought you were actually going to big up the Bushwhackers or the Beverly Brothers there. But yeah, it's a nothing match. It's an absolute dud. And then we've got the tag team titles on the line. It's the Natural Disasters challenging the Legion of Doom. If you go back once again to the archives, this feud started at SummerSlam 1991. And it's... I mean, it's an okay match. The problem is these teams didn't really gel well together. It's two kind of power teams, but they did okay. The match ends in a pretty poor way. It's all four members of the teams are outside brawling. Typhoon, who's the legal man, gets in the ring, beats the count. So the Natural Disasters win the match. For some reason, they think they're the tag team champions. I mean, it's not as if it's their first night in the business, but the referee and Howard Finkel informed them that they've won the match, not the titles. So they're pretty annoyed after this. And there's a promo from them in the back as well, expressing their anger. So that was the undercard in a very fast forward fashion. As I say, nothing to write home about. And really, this is a one match card, but what a one match.
Oh yeah, what a one match! Probably the one remembered from the 90s as the biggest Royal Rumble or the best Royal Rumble. And let's move on to the Rumble. Fash. So both of us we've opened up the WWE Network. We're going to be watching from here. You can watch from YouTube as well, but the fact is that we're going to go with the timestamps on the network.
Yeah. So the key thing, if you're in the US, then it's Peacock, isn't it? If you're in the UK and everywhere else, it's the WWE Network. And yeah, some of you may be able to go online and find this match as well. We're not going to endorse that, but certainly you can go on YouTube and other places. In terms of the timestamp, I want everybody to move to 1 hour, 26 minutes and 48 seconds. This is where the Royal Rumble is officially going to begin. And Wax, should we do a little countdown? Maybe a 3, 2, 1 play, and then we'll kick off the event, and I'll throw it off to you.
Absolutely. Just before you do that, let the audience get a minute to find that timestamp. I mean, just
I
the
thought they'd
pre-rumble.
just pause it.
Just, well, maybe they would, but just the pre-rumble very quickly. There were tons and tons of promos done by all the talent.
I should have. This was
we had Flair and Perfect. We had Macho Man, Shawn Michaels, the British Bulldog, Sid, Repo Man for some reason, who's managed to worm his way into a promo as well, and Undertaker. And then obviously the final one was Hulk Hogan, and all actually very good promos on the night, and even preceding that the actual event, there were lots.
Yeah, I mean, they all really expressed how big an occasion this was, and the fact that it's the first time that any one of these guys could be the champion theoretically. And as you say, the promos, I used to love this as a kid.
Yeah,
when they used to before the Royal Rumble, everyone kind of shouting and bawling and themselves saying how they're going to win the Royal Rumble was always great. And as you say, amongst them, the notable ones: Hogan, Flair, Piper, and Shawn Michaels. Straight after his heel turn on Marty Jannetty, he's dressed up as a very early HBK, and we'll certainly get to him as the match progresses.
So I think we've given everybody enough time to find the relevant slot. 1 hour, 26 minutes and 48 seconds. Fash, go ahead with the 3 countdown.
Yep, 3, 2, 1, and press play. And here we go. We're in the Knickerbocker Arena in New York City, and the familiar face of the Fink is in the ring. There was never a better announcer.
There certainly wasn't. I mean, funnily enough, it's actually not New York City, it's New York State, Albany, which is
you're right, Albany. My bad.
It's a strange place for, I always think, to host a wrestling event when you've got New York City down the road. But yeah, the Fink, just an incredible.
And this event was in the afternoon as well, which is a little bit odd for the time. We're used to evening pay-per-views in the US and then staying up really late in the UK, but this was an afternoon event, which is also a little bit different.
Yep. So Fink here is doing the typical preamble for the Rumble, explaining the rules to all of us who should know it by now. Obviously, 2 men are going to start the Royal Rumble, and a person's going to come in every 2 minutes. Is at this stage.
They used to always mix up, didn't they? Yeah. It was like 90 seconds, 2 minutes. There was that terrible 95 Rumble, which was 1 minute, and they moved away from that.
30 men in all. The final person left in the ring will win the Rumble. Obviously, the only way to eliminate somebody is over the top rope. And not through the rope or not under the rope.
And here comes Despicable Jack Tunney.
The Despicable Jack Tunney, the legendary president of the WWE, WWF, that never really was. And
he's got a title there, just announcing the fact, the gravity of the situation and how important this is. Yep. I used to love Jack Tunney just always looked clueless out there, even though he's talking. He just seems like he's so detached from everybody and everything. But he did come across as such an authority figure.
He did. It's funny because he doesn't know where to look. He seems to be like looking all over the place at the audience rather than at the hard camera. Explaining obviously what you said earlier, that the winner is going to win the title as a result of the debacles that happened at Survivor Series and Tuesday in Texas.
And a key thing here, Wax, is remember one of the decisions that were made by Jack Tunney were that Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker would be in the final 10. So because they were the last two champions, they will not be in the first 20 entrants. So giving them a bit of an advantage in this, and we'll see if that will play out. But you know, Jack Tunney used to remind me of my head teacher before you move on, and the British Bulldogs coming out.
Here we go, the first and very epic theme tune of the great British Bulldog. It was a classic theme tune of its day. Fash, you always knew who was coming immediately. And actually very popular, Davey Boy Smith.
Yeah, well, I think British Bulldog, he epitomized the British wrestler, didn't he? But there's been others before and since, but he was truly presented as on your nose British with the flag, the music, the look was great as well. And yeah, he's been back since 1990, but you and I have discussed, he's not really been doing much. He's been feuding with Warlord for what seems like ages. And here's number 2. Say his name, but say it correctly.
Ted DiBiase.
It's DiBiase. And as our survey, basically, you know, people agreed with me that you were saying it wrong. Oh, by the way, talking of surveys, you lost another one. I forgot to mention.
Well, it's funny that I keep losing these surveys when you're. And look at Sensational Sherry. I maybe shouldn't while I'm fasting, but she looks incredible.
She is incredible.
But it's amazing. This Rumble is so popular for a reason. It's got so much Hall of Fame talent.
Yeah.
Up with 2 all-time greats.
And here they go, and they're going at it straight away. And see, the thing with DiBiase was he was a big part of the 1989 Royal Rumble storyline, where you know the story was he going to buy his way to number 30, which he did, and then he's been part of even 1990 Royal Rumble story. Each time they'd play off him as being the man that could maybe do some corruption. But I think it's fair to say it, by 1992 he's a bit of a spent force as a single star in WWE.
Yeah, I think he'll have a bit of a renaissance in a couple of years from now when he's up against the Hulk Hogan and Brutus and the Money Inc. partnership. But yeah, he gets lost in the fold, doesn't he, after the first couple of years? But I think an excellent choice to open the Rumble. Two sort of very good, technically gifted wrestlers. Certainly.
Yeah, technically, $1 Million Man was great. And, you know, I think British Bulldog with the right opponent at this point could do really well. I mean, as I say, he becomes such a great worker again when he loses some of the beef in you know years after this. But this is a great way, as I say, to start the event.
I mean, he looks incredible. British Bulldog does at this stage. He's still probably on the roids that he's supposed to not be on, but he looks very good.
And it looks like that, and you know, DiBiase thinks he's eliminated the Bulldog. He hasn't, and this is not going to end well for the $1 Million Man. He is out of here before number 3 even comes out.
And then that probably just goes to show his status at that point in time. Yeah. I mean, out of the Rumble, first person. And something about Bulldog is he's always had a few Rumble moments, hasn't he? Some very athletic moments, some close calls, almost winning a Rumble.
Yeah, and even coming into this event, he won the Battle Royal at the Royal Albert Hall. Leading into this, so you know he was presented as somebody who was meant to be a specialist in this sort of match. And here comes number 3. And as we know, it's going to be all about this man. It's the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And obviously, after you know listen to us, go and watch this match just for the greatest commentary on one match ever. Bobby the Brain Heenan is going to absolutely lose it over the next hour.
He does. He's just so hyper every time Nature Boy is on screen. And even when he comes out, he's like, yes, yes. Even though he's coming in at number 3, probably not a very good number for a Royal Rumble.
Yeah, then he realizes it and then he starts panicking. And then, you know, I think Gorilla Monsoon points out that no one's ever won the Rumble from number 1 to 5, which makes Bobby Heenan nervous. And I think at some point, at one point he says that he apologizes to the audience saying he can't be impartial. Not that he ever is impartial, but as I say, it's such an amazing color commentary call that everyone needs to go back and watch this with the volume turned up.
Oh, there he goes, strutting and profiling like only the Nature Boy can.
And this is going to be great because, you know, he's going to take on, this is going to be all about Ric Flair, as we know, but, you know, different types of opponents. And there you go, you know, cheating as always, the dirtiest player in the game, reversal by the British Bulldog. And here you think the crowd goes a bit wild thinking that, you know, Bulldog's maybe going to press slam.
I mean, look at that power. He's press slamming him off with so much ease.
Well, and Flair's going to do his usual begging in the corner.
Yeah, I mean, this.
But there you go.
You're right. This is like one iconic performance from Ric Flair. Gets everything in there in this one match. And he is in tremendous condition himself to last the time that he will in this Rumble.
In between these two, we never really got a match between them, over at this time, because obviously Bulldog's more mid-card talent and Flair was positioned at the top. But, you see in this exchange that, they work really well together. The power,
do,
Flair can work with anyone at this stage.
And that's a tremendous thing that we love about Royal Rumbles is you see these matchups that you've probably never seen before. And you get an opportunity to see two wrestlers up against each other.
I used to love the countdown clock. I still do. Here we go. The fourth member of the Royal Rumble. And it's one of your boys, Nasty Boy Sags.
Nasty Boy Sags. It's funny, both were scheduled to be in this Royal Rumble, but we were talking about it a little bit before that there was an issue with the Nasty Boys after a show a couple of weeks before the Rumble where they got into an altercation with some fans who were following them, eventually which led into a fight, and Knobs got stabbed and Sags actually picked up a concussion as part of that fight. Which is crazy to think that they
well, look, the Nasty Boys,
they were that hated even then.
I'm not a fan of the Nasty Boys, but they certainly didn't deserve that. And yeah, as you see, we didn't know this at the time, right?
No,
we just know there's a replacement, but it's something you find out afterwards. And actually, the replacement for Knobs is going to be Haku, I believe, in this match. Is going to come later on. But to be honest, I had zero time for the Nasty Boys, and taking away the backstory of this. At the time, I wouldn't have been disappointed. The only one Nasty Boy was in this match. And it's a bit of a weird. It's a weird three names.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Sags and Flair.
Well, it's funny. We had a Nasty Boy at the end of the '91 Rumble. Knobs with Earthquake at that point against Hulk Hogan,
which made no sense.
And again,
and there you go. Sags is out of here.
Yeah. Well, see,
he's teetering on.
Look at that athleticism hanging on with one hand.
There you go, drop kick, he's gone, and that showed the athleticism of Davey Boy. And
maybe they weren't the brightest tools in the box. I'll give
the
them,
brightest tools. They mean the sharpest tools.
The sharpest
I think
tools.
You've just shown that you're not the sharpest.
Maybe I'm not. I'm part of that same toolbox. But here we go, Ric Flair begging for him.
The crowd was going crazy for this, so they were really behind Davey Boy. Shows the hatred they've got for Ric Flair as well.
Yeah, again, it's the Ric Flair playing his character so well over the preceding few months, claiming to be the real world champion, and I think that really got on the audience's nerve, and they couldn't wait to see him getting his ass whooped.
And here he comes, a replacement. So actually, if they would have went with the order, then Knobs would have came straight after Sags. But Haku's here. And I want your thoughts on Haku. See, as kids, right, or even as young wrestling fans, we didn't think much of Haku. But later on, you learn this was one of the baddest men on the planet, one of the toughest. So it's, they never really showed that.
Yeah, he was ever present in the WWF at that sort of early 90s, late 80s stage, wasn't he? Part of Bobby Heenan's brood. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I didn't mind watching Haku, but yeah, you're right. We never really knew. And here we go. He's supposed to be a heel.
Haku could kill every member in this Royal Rumble entourage.
Well, he's supposed to be a heel, but he does eventually start attacking Ric Flair as well.
And this is going to be Haku's last WWE pay-per-view appearance until, I think, the 2001 Royal Rumble, where he makes a surprise return. So he's going to end up in WCW after a little while under the name of Meng, and eventually returns. But this event's actually really interesting because as we talk through these names, there's going to be a number of guys where it is their last event, either for good or for a while. But look at that, Flair's attacking Haku when he's down,
raking him in the eyes. Typical Flair maneuver. Here comes the knee drop again. Vintage Flair.
And as I said, as a kid, I remember you used to love Ric Flair and you used to always be him when we were doing backyard wrestling, and you tried to copy these moves, even the knee drop, which doesn't work too well on grass and certainly not on concrete.
No, it doesn't. And Haku with his kicks, and is obviously not wearing it. Probably one of the first people not to wear any shoes in the wrestling ring. I think there's a few people that do it now.
It depends how far you go, isn't it? They used to always show these islanders as kind of savages. And it was like, if you go back
what a stereotype.
Well, that's exactly. You go back to the Wild Samoans, they were probably one, and then even Superfly and
you're
right. And Haku's gone as well.
There you go. Flair, and the Bulldog's on a bit of a roll here. He's knocked out.
Talking about someone who's going to be on
three
a roll.
People.
It's the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
The very newly appointed Heartbreak Kid, isn't it? We just talked about the Rockers breakup in our last episode, so check out the archives. But here he comes, already very hated. after his
Well, yeah,
stunt
he
in
had
the
real
barbershop.
heat because, as I said, at the barbershop, what he did to Marty Jannetty. He actually has an interview earlier in the night where he's in this new look and he's very proud of what he's done. And storyline wise, Marty's out of the Royal Rumble, obviously, and there will be somebody replacing him. But it's interesting he comes after Ric Flair in the beginning. And, as we know, these two
Oh,
men,
yeah.
their legacies are going to converge many years
And
from
we just
now.
seen a switch in music that didn't hit.
It didn't hit well, and nobody knew
Didn't hit
this
well.
was going to be such an important move.
And here it goes. Bulldog with another press slam.
So
The
three
guy's a freak.
big Hall of Famers in the ring right now.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. I bet you don't remember this. That actually, I thought he was eliminated here.
No, because I remember them talking about and another feature music that missed the mark.
This is funny because
this is very early singles.
Yeah,
Shawn
so
Michaels,
seeing,
isn't it?
he's maybe a bit too excited.
Yeah, no, it's funny that I think they were mentioning, in another podcast I was listening to, that Shawn Michaels went out there to steal the show in this Rumble, even though he wasn't in it for that long relative to some other Rumbles. But his whole plan was, I'm going to go out there and steal the show and do as much as I can.
And that just, epitomizes
Yeah.
the performer he became, because every time he wanted to maximize his minutes, and then ultimately, and it's really interesting. These two are going to be, the key storyline in the '95 Royal Rumble. So to see
they had a lot of good matches together,
and as we know, they're going to have a match which is going to be Davey Boy's last match in this run, where Shawn's going to become the Intercontinental Champion, and we will get to that eventually as well. So there's just so when you start watching it, I guess you see how there's different times in their careers where they're going to be important. Here comes your guy. I've got no time for Tito
El Matador, Tito Santana. What a guy. Brilliant.
And straight away,
Ric Flair goes for him, but nope, here he comes, the El Matador back. It's quite funny. Bobby Heenan had a couple of great remarks about El Matador and his green tights, making guacamole out of him.
A lot of things they said at that time. You
called him a flying jalapeno.
Yeah, and I think if you remember Jesse the Body Ventura, I used to call him Chico Santana, which once again has got undertones of racism. Here we go. This is old versus new. It's the El Matador and Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is the future. Tito Santana, I think, very much.
Yeah, Tito Santana, a very popular star of the 80s, an Intercontinental Champion. Bulldog and Shawn Michaels, other sort of Intercontinental heavyweights, you would say.
But not at this point, right?
Not at this point,
It's still to come for them. So when you look at it, it's actually the Bulldogs, the Rockers, Strike Force, quite like tag team focused ring right now.
Absolutely. And it was HBK's plan to try and get almost eliminated as many times as possible. And that's already been 3 times he's been over the ropes. And
how many guys copied this after?
Yeah.
I mean, Ric Flair's done it a few times, and he's the original of this kind of nearly eliminated, and he's going to do it throughout. But yeah, I think Shawn Michaels was the original to really make it famous in the years after this. But it's just it's more about the talent, isn't it? I mean, the people that are coming.
Yeah, I mean, they're all very popular, very famous wrestlers of their time. And this is a psychology thing about the Royal Rumble, which, we often don't understand is, you got a heel trying to take out a babyface or vice versa, and a heel or babyface will stop them from doing it. I mean, you want as many people out of the Rumble as quickly as possible, surely, but it never works that way. You've always got somebody coming to save somebody else.
At the time, you never understand why, right? When you're watching this as a kid.
No.
And here comes the Barbarian. And once again, I think it's his last pay-per-view as well. So another big, kind of roided up guy. You're going to notice there's going to be a theme in some of the guys we're not going to see again.
Yeah.
Big, muscly, huge. But the Barbarian, another guy who didn't really, he was in Powers of Pain and then Signal Star, but another one of the guys that was just there and never really.
Yeah, I think they loved his look, didn't they? In the Powers of Pain, they absolutely loved his look. But just another guy who, just because of his size, sort of made it on the show, didn't he?
Yeah, and he's going to end up in WCW as well, in that similar Powers of Pain type look, and he'll be, and I think at Halloween Havoc he'll be wrestling Ron Simmons for their championship. So this is the kind of goodbye for the Barbarian as well. And he'll end up coming back in 1994 for a very short run, but his time's over, really.
Yeah, Heenan comes up with a classic on the Barbarian. The Barbarian doesn't like anyone. He barely liked me when I managed him, says Heenan. It's a terrific performance from Heenan and Monsoon throughout.
Yeah, I mean, their chemistry was outstanding. And you don't appreciate it at the time.
No.
But, for this, for any match to be great. We've spoken about this before. Obviously the performers need to do well, but if the commentary team's on it and the crowd's in, then you've got something special.
Yep. So we've got Tito going after Ric Flair. Shawn Michaels taking a break on the top rope. The Bulldog's down.
So you and me are, and I'll say different. In my picture right now, Tito have just hooked up with Shawn.
Yeah, we're probably
Ric
just a second apart.
Yeah, a few seconds apart.
That's
Once
all right.
again, you.
I know for the
You're
fourth
not playing the
time.
game.
For the fourth time, Shawn Michaels is over the ropes but safe. And that's what he meant about going out and trying to steal the show, having the spotlight on him at all times.
Yeah.
And that's, very much Shawn Michaels type of thing. And the fifth time now, if you look at it, that's the fifth time he's been over the ropes. But safe.
And here comes the Texas Tornado.
We've not talked about Kerry Von Erich very much, but this guy had a lot of charisma, don't you think? A lot of mass appeal.
Yeah, I mean, there's even rumors going back that, when Vince McMahon was looking to set up everything, that it was going to be Hulk Hogan, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, or Kerry Von Erich, the man that, he's going to strap the rocket to. And I think Dusty Rhodes is mentioned as well. Just a tragic family story, these guys, in terms of what happened with the brothers. And, something that everybody learned later on, that he only had one foot, which is incredible.
I didn't know that until very late on. Flair with his first Flair flop.
And the discus punch always looked cool.
It did, didn't it? And his action figure was great because it had the revolving torso.
Exactly, and I had that one, and I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it. But it's sad here because this is, I keep talking about it, the last pay-per-view that Texas Tornado is going to be on, and sadly he's going to pass away a year later, taking his own life. So,
and it's amazing. Only the
sad
oldest
stories in this as well.
Von Erich remains alive. It's crazy to think what happened to that family.
Well, it's that thing, for people that are listening, Dark Side of the Ring, one of their episodes was on the Von Erich family.
They ran Texas, so I mean that family was huge and the biggest state in America. I mean that goes to say a lot about how successful the family was as a wrestling promoter and wrestlers themselves. They were incredibly popular in the South.
Yeah, I mean they ran that whole area, and he's going at it with Ric Flair, and they have that famous match where Kerry defeated him for the NWA title. I mean, he dropped it back pretty soon, but that was a huge crowd and a huge moment in his career.
And here we got Shawn Michaels and British Bulldog tied up in one corner, and Texas Tornado is going to help the Bulldog stay in the Rumble. Maybe he's going to come in handy later on. I don't know.
Here comes your favorite, the Repo Man.
Oh, the Repo Man. How did he steal an entry into the Royal Rumble? I don't know.
There you go. And as we know, he in previous Royal Rumbles was Smash of Demolition. So as we've said previously, we had no idea of this.
I mean, as much as of a terrible gimmick this was, right? He played it really well in terms of all sneaking around, skulking around. And this is so different, as you say, from the Demolition character where you'd go in and smash everybody. But
the interesting thing is he said, I think years after that, initially the character was meant to be darker and really sinister, but then it didn't go anywhere. And at this time, I think most things were very cartoonish outside of a few of the wrestlers and storylines you've spoken about.
Yeah,
a lot of it is cartoonish and is going to get more cartoonish as the years roll on. But yeah, he's sneaking around, attacking people.
It looks ridiculous, doesn't it? If you're watching it now, it looks absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, as a kid, you loved the fact that everyone was so different and unique. But some of these gimmicks were just terrible.
There's a very typical Shawn Michaels thing, getting punched in the face and that spit coming out. That's a very Shawn Michaels thing. Something we see a lot later on.
And you can see kind of obviously totally different form, but you can see he modeled certain things on Ric Flair because you're seeing similarities with the kind of semi coming in, as you say. The spit. Ric Flair does certain things, so you're seeing bits of that with him as well. Kind of traits that he's going to have throughout matches.
And it's amazing his transition is actually very smooth from a tag team wrestler to a singles wrestler. It's like practically overnight and. This is only a few weeks after him breaking up, and he's already, showing his skills as a singles wrestler.
And the ring's kind of filling up here after some early eliminations. Now you've got a lot of guys in there, these spots are always a little bit mixed because you get some guys are actually all action and others that are kind of resting around. But what you do see is that Flair's get involved with everyone, and out comes.
Another legendary character.
The poor man's Ric Flair, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Indeed. Somebody who's been around for so long by this point.
Well, he's somebody who's Ric Flair. Ric Flair's had about 100 kebabs.
Well, they had a big feud in the 80s, and
they
they were
went
a
after
tag
each
team
other
together
as
as well in the late 70s
Well,
and
this is the
early
thing, 'cause
80s.
somebody like yourself, me, who knows now, the history of wrestling things. This was great for fans at the time that were
Yeah.
knowledgeable, because if you see every guy's coming in attacking Flair, and they've got some sort of history in most
Yeah.
cases with him, so that gives
Exactly.
you like a nostalgia pop, and you're like going back. They're a team at one point, they feuded. There's so much there.
I mean,
And of course, Greg Hammer Valentine loved a chop as well.
He did, didn't he? And the chop is the one maneuver that Bret Hart used to say it actually hurts worse than it looks. Whereas most other maneuvers, they actually don't hurt as much as or as bad as they look. And I can imagine getting a chop. And actually, I will never share the story online, but I did get a few chops on one occasion.
Was this when you were on holiday?
This was when I was on holiday, but
I don't want
less said about that, the better.
If I was on that holiday, I probably just blocked it out.
You were on that holiday, but I think you were busy.
The only jobs I'm
this
involved
is
in.
a tremendous bit just now because I'm listening slightly to the commentary, and Heenan's just telling Gorilla Monsoon to shut up.
Oh, he was
vigorously.
And the ring really is filled up. I think it needs some eliminations to get the pace back up. But
I think that's the typical Royal Rumble thing, isn't it? You have a lot of eliminations in one clump, and then you let the ring fill up, and let somebody then take out a whole bunch of people, and that's going to happen soon.
Don't spoil it for the audience.
Well, it's a Royal Rumble. We all know what's going to happen. They're all going to have to get out of the ring one way or another.
Well, here we go. Who's the next man out?
A late replacement, Nikolai Volkov, who, again, might have had his time in the 80s, but now look at the state of him. He looks ridiculous. He's obviously a late call-up because he's
replacing Marty Jannetty in this.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? He's jumped over the top rope after you.
That is tremendous, actually. That's pretty good, even though he's huge. He looks absolutely huge, but
he looks so over the hill here, and
crazily, obviously, if everybody knows about his character, he came in as this Russian sympathizer in the 80s as a big heel when the Cold War was raging. Eventually turned to the good side, and that's why he's got the flag of the United States and Russia on his trunks. A mess.
Yeah, I mean, Nikolai Volkov like I said, obviously legendary career, but at this point he was well past it. And even as 7-year-olds, we knew that he wasn't going to win this match.
I know. And that's the thing, you have to have the Rumble filled with certain jobbers at that point, because not everybody can win the Royal Rumble.
And I don't think he's even been on TV in a while, so I think he's a genuine replacement where we've not seen him on television in a while. So he's one of these ones where he's there as a surprise.
Oh, and here we got Greg the Hammer Valentine got figure 4
and Volkov's gone as well.
Oh, there he goes. Repo Man with an elimination. Hey, who would have thought it? Repo Man.
Who are you to doubt the Repo Man?
Taking out Nikolai Volkov. And that was an interesting little bit there with Greg the Hammer Valentine doing a figure 4 on Ric Flair. A move that both have used over time.
The problem was Valentine, it just wasn't over.
No, but he's in the 91 Rumble, he was in for a very long time, something like 40
But once
minutes,
again, it was like, but you weren't excited about that?
No, he's not. He was not an exciting wrestler.
He just felt sort of placed
in the early 90s.
And in this.
And you're right, this is a transition period, isn't it? So there's a lot of people here that don't fit into
here
the
comes,
look. Oh, here comes
the big boss man.
The big boss man, a very popular wrestler back in the day.
Ray Traylor, now he was a great big man. I say as a kid, I wasn't a fan of the boss man. I've said this previously. Don't know why I just didn't like him. My younger sister, though, was a huge big boss man fan, which years later she couldn't understand why. I think it was just.
Well, yeah, you're right. He's a tremendous big man, very fit, a lot of all action sort of guy, isn't he?
Yeah, but once again, when you think about it now, comedy wise, the gimmick was ridiculous. A police officer dressed up as a police officer coming out to wrestle, but we loved it at the time.
We did. A bit of a mess in the corner here with Repo Man, Big Boss Man, Tornado, and Ric Flair. Everybody trying to save Shawn Michaels. That's probably the 6th or 7th time Shawn Michaels has been. Oh, and
the
there we
Repo
go.
Man's gone.
The Repo Man taken out by the Polis. Big Boss Man gets his elimination. And Repo Man has to skulk off to the back.
And look at the British Bulldog, remember, was number 1 in this Royal Rumble, and he's still in there with Ric Flair, who's number 3. So Ted
Yeah.
DiBiase really did get quite a raw deal, didn't he?
An early shower for Ted DiBiase. Maybe he was injured, we don't know. Or maybe they just thought
Nah, I think they
the
just
Bulldog
thought.
needs a bit of momentum in the Rumble.
Oh, well, you were saying that, and the Bulldogs
Oh, and there he goes. Ric Flair takes out British Bulldog.
momentum straight out of there.
So the Bulldog was in
now
there
we're
for
gonna see,
23 minutes.
and
which
Tornado's
is-
gone as well.
Oh, look at this. Ric Flair performance. Takes out Tornado as well. There you go. The dirtiest player in the game. Very quickly eliminating two mid-tier wrestlers, but that just gives Ric Flair that rub, doesn't it?
And Sean and El Matador eliminate each other. as
And there we go. I always love a double elimination. Sean and Tito going at the same time. And here's another guy who's sort of overstayed his welcome, don't you think, Fash?
Hercules.
Hercules coming in at number 14.
Well, I've got an interesting stat for you with respect to Hercules. So, interestingly, since WrestleMania 2 to this event, Hercules was on every single WWF pay-per-view.
Wow.
And you can go and check that.
He-
If I'm lying, I'm lying, but he was on every single one since that time. And yeah, at this point, I'd say he's well past it as well. I mean, he had this little run as Power and Glory, but Paul
Yeah.
Roman's left now.
he certainly looked better in past years. He's very bloated just now.
Yeah. And have you seen his last match on YouTube?
No,
If you haven't, you need to see it because it's hilarious. It's against Sid. And
that's not a good
basically-
combination, is it?
Well, the match is extremely short,
Uh-huh.
but it's in Madison Square Garden. Hercules' last night, or ended up being his last night, the way he behaved. So Sid kicks him, power bombs him. This is a very short match, but Hercules basically cushions the power bomb, and then he gets up straight away after the pin and just walks out.
Oh, well, we've got
To be
the
fired.
ring almost down to
And talking of him,
nobody.
he's gone. Well, it's now we're going to be left with just 2 men.
Yeah, so Barbarian and Hercules eliminated in quick succession. And we've just got the Boss Man and Ric Flair. This could have been a decent feud if they'd.
Well, this was
opted
what's
for it.
great about this, because I see there's lots of many little battles here, and they're saying, what ifs, because the mid card guys are over, and Ric Flair's going to wrestle all of these characters, and that's what
was
makes it
an
really interesting.
impressive
And
kick from the Big Boss Man.
do you think you could lift your leg up that high?
No, I don't think I could.
And
Oh,
Boss
and there's a
Man's
bit of
gone.
a flop. So the Boss Man flings himself at Ric Flair, who's on the ropes, ends up hanging up on the top rope for a few seconds before deciding he better.
And no, Bobby Heenan and Ric Flair has not won the Royal Rumble yet.
No,
He is the
that's
last man
a
in there,
class
but
line, isn't it? He goes, he's won.
now,
And
this is
Flair
gonna
with
be
another
interesting.
flop.
The next man coming out is going to be interesting.
So we're pretty much halfway through the Rumble already. We're now down to number 15. And the ring is clear for a very good reason, Fash.
It's the one and the only. Our countryman, our fake countryman, Roddy Piper.
The newly crowned Intercontinental Champion, and Ric Flair has an agonizing look on his face because the Hot Rod is coming after him like a house on fire.
And this was one of the big feuds. I mean, we've
Yeah.
detailed this in our previous episodes. So Ric Flair comes in and, he attacks Roddy Piper. So you're really feuding with him and Hogan, opposite teams at Survivor
The crowd
Series.
are going absolutely.
They're going
crazy
ape
for
shit.
this,
And to be
aren't
honest, I want to talk about that Piper winning the title earlier in the
Yep.
night, and it was a very short match, but the crowd reaction was exceptional. And obviously, there was a backstory to that as well, as we watch Flair and Piper go at it. And maybe you want to know what happened to Bret Hart? Where did he go?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? We all thought that Bret Hart had a fever and lost the title to the Mountie at a house show. But that wasn't the full story, Fash.
No, so the story is there's emerging. It's still a bit mixed up, but the story is that Bret was negotiating with WCW, and his contract was coming up, and there was fears that he was going to take the Intercontinental Championship to WCW at Clash of the Champions, to in a sense take a bit of revenge for what Ric Flair had done, bringing the big gold belt to WWE. Now it wouldn't be the same thing, given we've explained that Flair had rightful possession of that title. So I don't know how far that went, but that was the talk. This contract was coming to an end, so they got him to drop the title. With the storyline being that he had a 104-degree fever,
Fever, yeah.
and it was a transitional moment for Mountie, who then a few days later loses it to Roddy Piper. But as we know, Bret didn't go to WCW, and he's going to have a very big and bright future. But I guess for a future talking point, maybe some seeds were planted very early for the screw job that would come years later with respect to Vince McMahon and Bret Hart.
Yeah, here we've got Roddy Piper putting on a sleeper on Ric Flair,
How you won the title earlier
giving
on?
Ric Flair a break. I think he's worked
I
hard
think
so
so. I
far.
think so.
He's probably been there close to
And
half
here's
hour.
your other favorite as a kid.
Oh yes, Jake the Snake Roberts, who we've talked so much about in '91. What a performer!
Our
He's
MVP of
our MVP, yeah.
1991.
And
And
he
it was
decides,
brilliant. What a character. He just
this
sits in the
is-
corner.
and this is a man who knows the wrestling ring psychology better than anybody else. He decides he's going to sit in the corner, wait for Roddy Piper to finish off Ric Flair, which is the sensible thing to do. And then as soon as Roddy Piper turns his back, he takes him out.
And one thing I want to say here, people talk about, like, see, Jake Roberts' psychology, amazing, the way his entry is amazing. You remember him from all the moments, right? The angles and just everything. But he never really had a great match.
No,
And
it was
the-
not necessarily
Which people
the...
never talk about. He wasn't known for great matches, but it was everything else that made him great. Because even
And
this
that's
match
great,
man
yeah,
feud we're
'cause he-
talking about, there's not long, 20, 30-minute matches here.
Yeah, we're talking about Macho Man who put on great matches with the
Yeah.
Warrior. But I think his focus was so much on his aura and his persona that it didn't really matter what happened.
and this was an interesting combination of Ric Flair and Jake Roberts, which we never really saw because they've been different places at different times.
Yeah, and despite him being a bad guy, every time he went for the DDT, the crowd popped because they loved that move, didn't they?
Yeah. That was it. I mean, and this is it right here. People are popping for a sleeper hold because Hot Rod's doing it.
Yeah,
There's a figure four. There's a DDT. All these moves meant so much. The elbow drop from the Macho Man.
yeah.
Now you watch it and all this stuff means nothing because people have not been able to really, take something simple and make it their own. And that's why there's huge pops for all these moves. And certainly the DDT used to get one of the loudest.
And what trio in the ring? Roddy Piper, Ric Flair, Jake, Hall of Famers.
And see, before the whole, him getting shoehorned into the Intercontinental title race, leading into this, they were talking a little bit Piper's dream of finally winning the WWF title. He'd not won anything, so they're playing off that. And here's another goof that you're a big fan of.
A big goof, but very popular for his run. It's Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Well, we all know that you like a hoe, but...
Well, he had the biggest hoe of them all, didn't he?
Well, I don't know. As I said, I've been on holiday with you.
What a terrible wrestler he was, but he was so over. And he's just going after Ric Flair.
Well, that's again another guy going after Ric Flair. So this is the thing: it's the Ric Flair clinic here. He's going to take on every single guy, be it technical wrestler, high flyer, brawler, big, small, and that's what really makes it a great performance.
I mean, was Hacksaw Jim Duggan ever slim? Did he ever have?
He's a big guy. Always
He's
a big
guy, man.
But here he was getting out of shape. Another guy, by 93, he's going to be really out of shape. But we must note, he is the first ever Royal Rumble winner. It wasn't a pay-per-view, but in 1988, he was the first guy to win it.
Yeah, he did have a lot of potential when he first came in. He was very popular. His whole USA gimmick was brilliant.
And look at this. I mean, we're seeing Piper and Hacksaw going at it. Another unique combination.
Another finger in the eye to Ric Flair by Roddy Piper. And a bite now to the side of his head. It's funny that Roddy Piper is such a heel wrestler, really, isn't he?
Well, he was the original guy, wasn't he? That didn't change his persona when he became a good guy. We people point to Stone Cold Steve Austin, but he's the original that didn't change. He's not acting like a nicer than nice good guy like Lex Luger would end up becoming, which just really annoy me. When a wrestler turns good guy, they totally change the character, and they turn bad, they totally change the character. Piper was one of those guys that he just changed his opponents, but he didn't change his attitude.
Chopping like crazy, Ric Flair and Roddy Piper. I mean, you see actually a lot of chops even to this day because it's a move that has such impact.
And it always has the same reaction, right, from the crowd. It's always a like,
exactly. And here we go. Another big entry coming up. Another big favourite of mine, Fash. It's number 19.
IRS?
I've jumped. I've jumped a guy.
Are you cheating here? See, I'm watching this as the film. It's the first time I'm ever watching it, and you're obviously trying to cheat and look at who's coming in next. But I could, to be honest, this guy is your hero. You're an accountant, right?
I've jumped the gun,
Iris
but yeah,
taxman.
I've got to say,
your
I have
personalities
grown
are similar.
to appreciate IRS more now than I have ever done before. When I was a kid, I used to think he was the most boring guy ever. But now, as a qualified accountant, I can completely understand this guy's got a lot of talent.
Well, I think, Mike Rotundo, a great worker, but...
It was a great worker and actually a great trainer as well.
I hated the Iris character. It's just so boring. And, I think he's another one who started off, they gave him a bit of push but there's not much happening now, and that's why he and Ted DiBiase actually worked out as a pretty good team. As Money Incorporated as they will be in a short period. But yeah, it was another career maybe was going nowhere at this point, but he is going to have some high points in the coming years. And of course, he's the father of Bray Wyatt
Yep.
and Bo Dallas, but nobody really talks about Bo Dallas.
He recently released, wasn't he, by the WWE?
I didn't even realize he was on the roster still.
But certainly ring psychology, he knows his stuff. He was a good trainer later on in life as well.
And you remember I had the IRS figure as well.
Yes, that was a very iconic figure because he had the white shirt and the red
again, I was
breeches.
just, as we were just desperate to get any figure. You didn't really care who it was, which explains some of the kind of picks that you ended up with. It was whatever was available in the shops.
Yep, Hacksaw with no rhyme or reason, just going after everybody one at a time. And we're sort of midway through the Rumble at this stage. And we've still got some bona fide wrestlers in the ring just now. Jake the Snake.
And I think you're maybe alluding to this person coming out. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to take back.
You're right. Here he comes, number 19.
You're wrong again. It's Jimmy
popular...
Superfly.
No, this is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about. I was talking about Superfly. I loved Superfly as a kid. I thought this guy was immense.
You're the shame.
His look and his super.
We didn't see him at his peak. At this point, we didn't know that he was huge in 83 to 85 because we obviously started watching wrestling later, and then you went back and saw why is Superfly Jimmy Snuka at WrestleMania 1? You didn't really understand it.
Yeah. And
later you learned that this guy was basically, before Hogan came in, the number 1, number 2 babyface.
And huge in New York. So you always get a good pop at Madison Square Garden or in Albany where they are just now. And he had that great frog splash, didn't he?
Don't you dare call it a frog splash.
It was class. It was brilliant.
No, it was not a frog splash.
It was one of the best maneuvers
of
the time.
So it was the proper splash. I don't think he called it a frog splash. I think others later on tried to make it their own by that. But yeah, I mean, the iconic jokes aside where he does it off the top of the cage, which inspired the likes of Mick Foley. But you know, a very controversial character as well.
Yes, he is.
So I'm not sure how I feel about him, Max, in terms of, you know, those controversies. Once again, Dark Side of the Ring. I don't know why I'm plugging them. They don't sponsor us, but they've got an episode on him as well that I would encourage.
Yeah, you do seem to like the seedy side of wrestling, don't you, Fash?
I like to, you know, you like to only see the good side, ignore all the bad stuff that's happening in the world around you. I just like to point it out.
Oh, here we got a nose rake by Roddy Piper on Ric Flair. A very funny moment of the Rumble, and Ric Flair almost over the top rope. But nope, safe for now.
And once again, ring full of Hall of Famers.
And again, that's why this Rumble is one of the best of all time. You got so many great wrestlers in there, so many great characters, not just about the wrestling. Back then,
wrestling is. We've said this so many times, haven't we? That wrestling is all about the characters, and you don't get the same level of that today. And talking of the ultimate character of all characters.
Here we go. It's The Undertaker coming in at number 20. So obviously didn't get a good draw when between 20 and 30, but
Tony screwed him over.
He did. So I mean,
this is our last champion.
Yeah, indeed. So he got screwed over, didn't he, at Tuesday in Texas or at Survivor Series after Tuesday in Texas between Hulk Hogan and Undertaker.
So he wins at Survivor Series, and then in controversial fashion, thanks to help.
And Hulk Hogan cheats at Tuesday in Texas. So instead of giving him the belt back, they just take it off, and that's unfair. But here he comes.
And Superfly Snuka's out there, the guy that he started the streak. Undertaker's got no time for him. And he's going after Ric Flair. Ric Flair thought, you know, the Undertaker would be his ally since they've been working together, but
no, the Undertaker has very few allies, doesn't he?
Only foes, no friends.
And this is only a year and a bit in to the Undertaker's career. So,
I mean, it's the unbelievable rise, isn't it? I mean, no wrestler was pushed better in terms of just being bulletproof and presented as just something special from day one.
And do you think anybody else could have pulled off that character? Like,
no way. I think it's always one of those things, isn't it? That you say, but you know, we've talked about it before. A zombie, dead man, mortician, whatever you call him, should never work. When you see so many other characters didn't work, I mean, he just lived it, and then the way he evolved over time, no one else could have played this character, and certainly not made it as successful. I mean, that is the greatest gimmick in WWE history, isn't it?
Yep. Evolved over time, and Paul
What's then he
Bearer obviously
changed,
on
he
the outside
kept
of the ring,
changing.
adding to that aura. Chops and punches from Hacksaw and Ric Flair and IRS not really doing any damage to the Undertaker.
I think it's time for Hacksaw to leave this match now. He's starting to get on my nerves, as is IRS.
Well, he's
but
probably-
here's the big man, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, running to the ring.
He's
And
on
you
a
know who he's
sprint
looking
down
for?
the ring. He's looking for Jake the Snake Roberts. They're in the middle of an amazing feud. We've talked about it in the archive, so check it out. They're still going at it, but Undertaker's going after. Where is Jake the Snake? There he is. He's rolled out the ring as soon as he's seen
rolled out the ring.
the Macho Man coming in. The very smart, intelligent
And
man
now
that
he
he
wants
is.
a piece of him
Now he wants some, doesn't he?
with his ally, the Undertaker.
Now, Macho Man's a funny character when it comes to Rumbles. In terms of
He
some
doesn't
of the
get the
stuff that
rules,
he
man.
does.
He doesn't get
He
the
doesn't
rules.
understand the rules at all, does he? And we're going to see another moment later on. But
But
in the
before
previous
that,
Rumble, he missed his entry into
well,
the.
he ran away from the Ultimate Warrior, didn't
Yeah, he ran away from the Warrior after screwing him out of the title. But here he goes, to the top rope and that double axe handle slam.
he? Vintage. And he's going to eliminate Jake Roberts. But here's the big moment.
This,
He eliminates himself, but because of our Rumble so inconsistent, right? I don't think
yeah,
that happened. They're going to say, oh, well, nobody eliminated him, so he's not out there. But then this was the inconsistency. In other years, people would be eliminated by doing something like this, and then they would kind of dilly-dally and jump between the rules depending on who it was,
Yeah.
which was annoying.
and it made no sense to have him come back in the Rumble. To be fair, they should have just fought out to the outside, to the backstage, and that would have been it. There was no reason for him to come back in the Rumble.
Yeah, that's it. And, you know, I guess in hindsight, it worked well because at this point, we're thinking this feud's going all the way to WrestleMania, right?
So
But
Macho Man
it's
keeps going
gonna be-
after Jake the Snake, who's
Which is
eliminated.
brilliant because it showed how personal this was. And then the Undertaker keeps
And that
helping
makes sense,
Jake.
doesn't it? Yeah. So at this point, Undertaker has an ally in Jake the Snake, and they're going to put the beats into Macho Man.
And Undertaker's going to throw him back in the ring. So somebody probably told him saying, throw him back in, he's not out. Let's ignore what happened. But Jake the Snake Roberts is definitely out. And Piper and Flair have been going at it for a while as well. And said Ric Flair in at number 3, still going strong.
Yeah, it must be close to 40 minutes now for Ric Flair in the Rumble. I think the record was around about 53 minutes or something like that in the previous Rumble by Rick Martel, of all the people to hold the record in the Rumble.
Great conditioning. But yeah, as we know, Ric Flair is going to surpass that. And
It's-
Hacksaw going after the Undertaker here.
Yeah. There could be another interesting feud. He's going to go
I
for the
don't know.
slam, but
And see, that's you said, could anyone else play it? Even in the early years, the facial expressions
Yeah.
of Mark Calloway, he just was amazing. The walk, everything he did.
yeah, it's not as simple as it looks, is it? That slow walk that you do, the
Even
eyes
the
and
eye rolling, the face,
there's so
every
much
expression.
involved, and he lived that character for so long.
Yeah.
He perfected it.
And Ric Flair low blows the Undertaker.
And actually, does the Undertaker feel it? He does. So even a dead zombie Undertaker can feel a low blow.
Short to the nuts.
So who do we have next?
The
It's
Berserker,
the
do you remember him?
Berserker. I do remember him. I mean, again, a guy who had quite a good look, because tall, muscular, but the character was not.
Yeah, John
not-
Nord. So he modeled some of this from Bruiser Brody, didn't he?
Yeah.
And actually, initially when he joined, he was called the Viking for a few weeks, and they changed it to the Berserker. But yeah, his career is going to go nowhere. And I think I could be wrong here. He, in some shoot interview, had said that he potentially could have been the Undertaker, which I just can't
You will.
picture.
Now
And
you
I
can't really
believe
picture it,
then the
yeah.
Undertaker would not have become a big star if that would have been true.
Yes.
But yeah, Berserker is actually going to be in a feud with the Undertaker for a short period, some months' time. But at this point, another character that was their newcomer, but
So apparently, he was a very good friend of
wasn't really
Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff brought him into WCW for a wee.
he was
run
there in
later on.
98, I think in
Yeah.
97, 98. He was there for a very short period as John Nord. Remember Goldberg defeating him. But yeah, in this WWE run, shouting "Huss, Huss, Huss" and being a Viking.
Yeah, I mean, you can
people-
imagine
people
Hulk
didn't
Hogan.
latch onto it.
Vince McMahon took one look at him, seen his size, and thought, "Oh wow, he needs to be in the
But then
WWF."
he gave him a shitty gimmick. which was
Well, you
he's never
say
going to
it's
get over.
a shitty gimmick, but at the time they obviously thought this is a great gimmick, and that's the thing. They don't give out the gimmicks because they think they're rubbish. They think, oh, these gimmicks are going to work.
I'm not so sure about that. I think they mess with some people. Are you one of these Bruce Pritchard loyalists to say the Red Rooster was not
It was not a
a
rib.
humiliation for Terry Taylor?
It was not. I believe in the word of Bruce like gospel.
He's trying and get over for him to give you a shout out. It's not going to happen.
One day. It's funny, we met Bruce, didn't we, Fash, in a meet when he came to Glasgow. A very short meeting it was, but obviously we stayed for the show. Quite entertaining.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
And
I mean, not as good as the
one
London
day,
one.
Fash and Wax will be selling tickets to the O2 Arena.
Here's the guy that won't be
comes
selling tickets.
Jobber
Well, he
and
might
a
be
half.
selling. Well, he might be selling tickets for other people's events. It's Virgil.
He'll be selling tickets to see pictures of other people like he does in his roadshows. So Virgil probably coming off the back of a decent run, but this is now towards the end of his popular run, isn't it?
He's limping to the end until we see him in WCW for a few years where he's in the NWO. But yeah, and he's got the candy cane trousers on, which for a man who's fasting right now, I'm thinking of candy cane now.
It was a very odd attire, wasn't it?
And that's the thing. Virgil had a decent look, right? But he just couldn't work.
No, I don't know what it is about his face as well. He looked like 20 years older than he probably was. So Ric Flair with a rake to the eyes and Undertaker. We've got Virgil in there. Let's have a roll call, Fash. We've got IRS, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Macho Man, the Berserker, Roddy Piper, Undertaker, Ric Flair, as I mentioned. So the ring filling back up again.
So you look at all these guys, right? And there's a whole bunch of Hall of Famers, and then you've got the Berserker and Virgil in there as well.
Do you think we'll ever see Virgil in the Hall of Fame, Fash?
Well, to be honest, anyone can go in the Hall of Fame, but in terms of being a worthy addition to the Hall of Fame, I don't think so.
No. 47 minutes for Ric Flair in the Rumble now. That's tremendous. This is hard work, isn't it? Being in a Rumble, every time somebody comes in, they go after you. You've got to do
what I liked about it is because in the future, there's going to be other guys that are going to be in there for a long time, right? And but a lot of times, people just roll about. Have these breaks which are visible now, even when it was, Rey Mysterio, it was Chris Benoit. Ric Flair is working throughout this, and you don't necessarily appreciate it at the time, but he's literally just going at it. A guy who certainly couldn't work anywhere close to an hour is Colonel Mustafa, the Iron Sheik, and for some reason he thinks he's a bushwhacker coming out here.
Yes, indeed.
Any army marches like this.
Well, look, I mean, he's so old at this stage, but he's still going.
He's so old. He's an Iranian playing an Iraqi. There's just so many things going wrong with us.
Yeah, I mean, the Gulf War angle seems to have died a death, but he's still around for some reason. And that
I said he's still part of the army. He's not ready to be court-martialed yet, but he goes straight after Hacksaw. See, he's playing the kayfabe card, going after the American hero.
Yeah, obviously at Survivor Series, they were pitched on opposite teams as their respective team leaders.
And of course, in 1987, they were caught with some hash.
Yes, which probably ruined Hacksaw's career, didn't it? He probably had
that's a
potential
good point.
chance to get further up.
Yeah, I think after that, he was never treated as a serious character. He was this comedic character. Whereas when he came in, there's maybe more of a serious tinge to him.
Yeah. But I mean,
and a shot of the crowd, the Knickerbocker Arena, and as you're right, it's Albany, New York. See, I thought it was New York. We're saying it's different.
It's the state of New York, but it's a different city within the state, which I always found odd because we always think New York City is the.
You've
capital.
been there, haven't you? I unfortunately haven't been there yet, but you have.
Well, one day we'll visit for the WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden whenever it comes back.
I don't think they'll ever do a WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden again.
It's
all about big
falling out with Madison Square Garden.
But falling out, and they're just wanting the biggest crowd possible now, don't they? It's all about the money.
Yeah, so the ring is filling back up again. We're had 20.
The ring is filling up, but there's a lot of characters in here that are not as impressive now.
No,
some jobbers, some fodder with some bona fide. At this point, you would have thought, let's say if you're watching this live, you would have thought, can Ric Flair do it? Roddy Piper, is he going to do it? Undertaker, these are the names that you're thinking about.
Well,
back
here
in
comes last
2012.
year's record holder, actually the all-time record holder in terms of minutes, 52 minutes and 34 seconds in the 91 Rumble for Rick Martel.
But he's
And
all
it-
time to this point, right?
yes, it was all-time to
Yeah,
this
that's all
point.
to this point, yeah.
His bright pink trunks, which are very memorable. Very memorable heel for me. I always used to remember him fondly.
Yeah, we've spoken about arrogance, yours and his.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, Rick Martel was great. I think, as we discussed, he went into the real estate business. He had other things going on,
yeah.
so he was in and out of the company over the next few years. And therefore, you wouldn't get a sustained push.
No, but quite a successful run actually. All if you think about his 80s championship with Tito Santana, then the feud with him, and then Jake the Snake Roberts. He had a lot of airtime.
And look, he's going after Ric Flair as well, right? And this is once again a callback to them. When,
Yeah.
I guess Rick Martel was in the AWA, so they've had previous, and it just shows every wrestler pretty much is having a little cameo with Ric Flair.
We've just had Colonel Mustafa eliminated by the Macho Man.
And you shed a slight tear as you say that.
Well, if he'd lasted much longer, he would have had a heart attack, I'm sure. The man should probably have retired then, but he probably wrestled for another 15, 20 years after that, or however long he was alive. I mean,
shake, baby.
Yeah. So Rick Martel was the 25th of 30.
We're getting towards the business end.
Indeed. IRS drenched with sweat, and I can't imagine how difficult it must be wrestling in shirt and tie and trousers and loafers. It's just that's impressive, if nothing else.
Number 26 is going to join us shortly. The countdown is on. And I used to love it. The crowd would get up.
Yeah,
they'd look towards the entrance who's coming, and then you'd, as a viewer, you'd hear a pop, or you'd, say, and here he comes.
It's the Hulk, and people always say he gets boozed, but this time the crowd's pretty on it. And
the crowd's cheering from here. And remember, we're going to discuss it later on what happens, but he's still over. But I would say he's not as over as he was.
No,
previously.
And he's going straight for Undertaker and Ric Flair, double headbutt on both. And obviously he's had big run-ins with both of them over the recent few months, so it makes perfect sense for him to go straight for him. IRS wants involved.
IRS, he goes after him as well. Nobody likes to pay taxes, especially
exactly.
Hogan.
He knows Hogan's probably a tax cheat, so makes sense. And you got huge guys in there, Undertaker.
And Martel's
Hulk
gone,
Hogan.
I think.
Yep, Martel eliminated.
And some really
no, Martel, I think, is actually still in there. He's probably went through the ropes rather than under. So survives for another day. But Hulk Hogan's still not taking off his vest or his hat, his bandana even.
And I can't believe this. He's eliminated.
Yeah, that's a bit of a screw job, don't you think, on the Undertaker?
But you know what? You look at it was actually a nothing performance from the Undertaker.
It was very average.
And Hogan eliminates another, and there comes the
he eliminates the Berserker as well. So he's taking out the two biggest guys in the Rumble. And there we go. There goes the vest.
But yeah, in terms of Undertaker, that was a bit of anti-climax. You would have thought he'd go right to the end, and there's a little bit of interaction there. Of course, Undertaker is impressive to still give him heat. He lands on his feet, but it was not much of a promise. And Virgil and Duggan are gone as well.
Virgil and Hacksaw Duggan, double elimination. And if you look at Hulk Hogan, he doesn't look in the best shape of his life. Fashion. No. There's a reason for that, isn't there?
You tell me what the reason is.
It's the steroid trial.
He's not been taking his vitamins.
He's not been taking his vitamins anymore. Because he's under so much pressure at this time.
Yeah.
Incredible.
We always talk about this. You're going to do a special podcast.
Yeah, one day we'll get to it.
But yeah, he's a man
here we go.
Pressure.
He's about to hulk up on Ric Flair, and in comes number 27, Skinner. A gimmick I remember so well for some reason. I'm not sure why, but
we discussed him in our Tuesday in Texas episode, and the fact that his previous incarnation was very different from this character.
Yeah,
but a nothing character, to be honest, and a nothing run.
I just remember that black goo more than anything else. I think that's what it is.
Tobacco juice, man.
Tobacco juice. I'm sure there was something else mixed in with that to get it that black, that dark.
Well, I think he said it was actually licorice, but like it was tobacco. But
well, funnily enough,
quite an odd choice for number 27.
Yes, it is. Funnily, IRS is wearing Hulk Hogan's vest as a scarf for some reason. Maybe a closet fan of Hulk Hogan.
Well, back in the day, people forget this, but the American Express, the US Express, they were called.
Yeah.
You watched WrestleMania 1, and it was IRS under the name Mike Rotundo or Rotunda. I can't remember if they used his real name or they Right, and it was him and Barry Windham who were the US Express, and they were the tag team champions at the time, and so they were American boys. So maybe he's called
Yeah.
back.
And it's amazing. So many of these characters have so many reincarnations in different decades.
Yeah,
They've lasted so long. And Roddy Piper's still in there, but
and that's
almost being
something that
eliminated.
people maybe forget, that Piper was actually in it for quite a while. So they were continuing this dream storyline of
Yeah.
can he win both titles on the same night?
Oh.
He's the first man in history that was pulling double duty in the
Yeah.
Royal Rumble, and he was still in the mix here. But we are getting to the business end now. There's 3 names left.
3 names left. None of them. Well, one of them very impressive.
Let's not spoil. Well, I disagree. There's one man who's very over in those 3.
One very over.
But let's see, because I can't actually right now. I'm thinking who number 28 would be, because unlike you, I've not cheated. I've not watched this one in a while.
Oh, a double clothesline from Hulk Hogan. His vest has spent more time in this ring than Ted DiBiase did.
Ted DiBiase.
I'm going to stick with
DiBiase. I think you need to say his name probably.
No.
Oh, Sergeant Slaughter.
Sergeant Slaughter. What's he still doing around? Did he not learn from the previous year 91 that he was no longer over?
See, now he's accepted now as a babyface, and another character I had no time for at this stage. He was
a guy that had such a long run backstage as well. After his career finished.
And Skinner has been eliminated by the model Rick Martel. That's another one.
Yeah.
And once again, look, Slaughter's going to go after Ric Flair. So another one of these,
Sergeant Slaughter, it looks quite slim. I always used to imagine him as the big fat bastard that he turned out to be later on, but he's actually not that.
I think he was pretty fat when he joined them in 1990, and then he lost a bunch of weight when he became champion, and then he's okay here. Then he's going to gain it again. My favorite moment of Slaughter later on is when Stone Cold Steve Austin's going to stun him when he's the commissioner. But yeah, I mean, at this point, Slaughter's past it, and nobody believed he was going to be the champion here, right?
Yep. We still got Macho Man in there as well. Macho Man, a potential winner of this Royal Rumble.
Well, that's the thing. You've got Macho Man, Hogan, Piper, Flair, who you'd have thought potentially could do it. I think at this stage, as a kid or a young viewer, you'd think it's going to be one of the good guys.
Yeah.
You still wouldn't believe that Ric Flair is going to win this because you didn't know the history of the man.
No, the original Iron Man, really, if you think about it, he had so many matches that went over an hour. So for him, this is a walk in the park, even though he's getting older and older. IRS on the brink of going out, so is Macho Man.
And he's got that scar. He's got Hogan's shirt around his neck again.
That's you're right. That shirt has lasted a long time in this Rumble. A rake to the back by Hogan and a rake to the face.
Hogan is such
a heel, isn't he?
And listen to this pop for number 29. When you go back and watch this, Sid Justice gets a huge reaction. You can see the people getting up. He was over. This was his return.
This was his return, wasn't it? After a while injured.
Yeah, because as we said, he was feuding with Jake and The Undertaker, but then he's gone before Survivor Series, and this is his big return.
Yeah, he's still a huge babyface at this point.
Yep.
Just a massive man. He
was huge here. You're talking about vitamins and steroids at this point, but Sid was huge.
And we've only got one person left after Sid.
Yeah.
I've still got a number of people in the ring. Rick Martel, Roddy Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, Macho Man, Sid, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and IRS. So still a large number of people in the ring. And we obviously know that's not going to last.
We're coming to the end now. Hogan trying to get some sympathy. Held by IRS, getting beaten up by Ric Flair.
Actually selling for a change.
To be honest, Hogan was a great seller. He was great at selling.
I'm harsh on him. I'm harsh on him.
But he was a great seller when he knew he was going to be over at the end.
Yeah. Taking some chops off Flair now.
Snapmare by Ric Flair. Sid coming after Ric Flair.
Sid, crowd popping.
And this is a WCW reunion here.
Yeah. Former Horseman.
Yeah. That's a good
you
point.
never really have imagined Sid as a horseman, really.
One
but
thing I always forget about Sid in his 1990 incarnation as a horseman. I remember Ric Flair's absolutely ripped him apart years later, saying he shouldn't have been a horseman, which I think is harsh.
I think after that first one or two incarnations of the horseman, it's
difficult to imagine. Kip up. Did you see that kip up from Sid?
See, indeed. He's a very athletic guy, very athletic guy.
You didn't really see that later on in future years. And we're going to start the countdown for the last entrant. And it's going to be a bit of a damp squib, Wax.
It
But
is,
I've got some
isn't it?
stats for this man.
You've done your research on this man of all people. It's number 30, the final person, and it is.
It's not Harvey Whippleman, it's the Warlord.
It's the Warlord.
And here's the thing with the Warlord, right? So he was in the 89 Rumble and he was eliminated by Hogan in 2 seconds. And then he's been in the 90 Rumble. He eliminated no one and was eliminated himself pretty quickly. In the 91 Rumble, he came in at, number 3. And, he was number 29 in the 91 Royal Rumble, eliminated no one and was eliminated. And now he's at number 30 and it's going to be a similar theme.
Well, if you look at the size of this guy, you would think.
Well, that's the thing. Why was he humiliated in every Rumble? He came in, never made an elimination in the Royal Rumble.
And we've got Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair fighting on the outside of the ring.
But they've not went over the top rope, which is the key thing.
Stay down, Rick, says Heenan. Take a break.
And that is a killer.
Oh, that's impressive. Eh? We were talking about how slim Sergeant Slaughter looked, but that is impressive. He gets thrown into the corner by Sid, and he does a huge huge splash onto the top turnbuckle and out of the ring.
By the Hulkster on Ric Flair.
How can he keep going? Bobby Heenan going for some sympathy now for Ric Flair. I think he's losing faith.
Well, once again, I'd encourage our listeners not to do what Wax is doing, which is keeping the volume low on the commentary. Enjoy it fully. Listen to us right now. And I don't know why Warlord was number 30. I mean, it's just a useless entry.
Number 30 should always be reserved for somebody.
I'm going to give you a bit of a, I'm going to break some news to you here, a bit of a spoiler. Once again, the Warlord is going to eliminate no one in this Royal Rumble. So 4 Rumbles in a row, he basically was useless.
IRS has just been eliminated by Roddy Piper. A good run by IRS.
Yeah, it was a good showing by him.
And again, it's a time when they did put quite a lot behind IRS. He had a lot of airtime. He'd always do a little promo when he come into the ring.
And there you go. The useless Warlord is eliminated
by Sid and Hulk. So at least it takes 2 big guys this time to eliminate him. But still, I mean, the sheer disrespect to a man of that size. I mean, what's the point of hiding somebody that size and not then pushing him as a monster,
He was pretty bad in the ring.
He was pretty terrible.
And he was, he was roided to the core. And
a double elimination from Sid.
Piper and Martel. So a good showing by Roddy Piper, but his dream's not going to come true. He's not going to win 2 titles on the same night. And now the final 4.
Man, what a final 4. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Sid, and Macho Man. This.
And I'm going to take you back. This is 7-year-old you. Who do you think's winning this at that point?
You still got to put your money on Hulk Hogan. I will say
certainly not on Macho Man. The Macho Man is history, and we're in the final 3.
Chops. Well, Ric Flair, you got to put him as the least favorite of the 3. No, you got Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, at this point, if you're
Sid as the baby faces,
you'd think Hogan or Sid. You as a heel lover and a Ric Flair lover, as a little kid, would have quietly inside said,
I thought that was him there. Ric Flair almost taking out
and
Hulk Hogan.
The big moment is coming out, and here you go.
The opportunist Sid takes Hulk Hogan out over the top.
Well, this is the new narrative, and Hogan, the biggest crybaby on the planet.
Yeah, that's what Sid came out with recently, didn't he?
Yeah, well, this was, and we're going to talk about how badly this was done because.
To be fair,
it didn't work.
To be fair, he did get screwed over there a little bit by his
How did he
mate,
get screwed?
his
Every
friend.
man for himself. And look, this is the sore loser that Hogan is, right? Tugging on Sid, and from behind,
Ric Flair's going to add the juice.
Eliminate Sid, and we have a winner of the 1992 Royal Rumble.
I mean, that is terrible act from Hulk Hogan, no? Don't you think that is?
I think he overshot it because this is not the first time. He did this in 1989, right? He accidentally eliminates the Macho Man, and then can't take it when he's eliminated by the Twin Towers. So I think he eliminates Big Boss Man. He does the same here. Can't take the fact that Sid's fairly eliminated him, and then helps Flair get rid of him. And
there we have it. Ric Flair wins the Royal Rumble. And not just does he win the Royal Rumble.
But see, Hogan's got to chase him away.
Oh, look at this. This is dirty tactics from Hulk Hogan. Ric Flair should have had his proper moment there.
And he will, thankfully, in backstage. But what a performance. I mean,
what a performance. It lasted, I think, over an hour. in the Royal Rumble. And here you got
Yeah,
Sid and Hulk
I think
Hogan.
just shy of an hour, 59 minutes, and I don't know how many seconds, but it was close. And a shoving match now between Sid and Hogan, and Sid's well within his rights. But the key thing here is that you watch this version of it, and there's cheers for Hogan, and when Sid eliminates him, there's some boos. But in the real recording, in the original one, people cheered the Hogan elimination.
And it makes perfect sense because, well, not so much the elimination, but his acts thereafter are something that would naturally get you booed, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it was ridiculous because it wasn't. I mean, if they were aiming to get sympathy for Hogan, which seems like they were, it just didn't work. So I don't know if Vince was just screwing with him.
Yeah.
As you say, Sid tells a story about this now. I mean, I don't know how much you can, take this as truth, but he says that behind, afterwards, Hogan charged into the locker room and he was bawling and shouting and really annoyed with Vince McMahon, saying that he'd been screwed over because of this. And Sid said he was ready to walk out of the company because of all this happening. So I don't know how much truth there is into that, but you can see at this point, the reaction for Hogan isn't positive.
I
Find the original
find it
feed.
hard to believe because he knows what's going to happen at WrestleMania. They're going to be main eventing.
Yeah, it seems. Well, this is at this point.
It's the
Though,
money spot for him,
if
isn't
you
it?
watch it from here, you think this is going to be the match, but obviously they're not going to play that. We're still going towards this Ric Flair
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan mega match, and at this point, people would have been a bit confused. What are they doing?
And actually,
But-
Sid is actually getting the cheers from the crowd. He's actually
Yeah, so you can see, even though they've kind of, they changed some of the sound, they tuned it after this event was live. You can just see the reaction of the people that they were very much on Sid's side, and Hogan wasn't getting the reaction, and it's just because of his actions. They were of a sore loser.
yeah. So very rare for a heel to win a Royal Rumble at this stage. I don't think there had been anyone really.
Well, yeah, let's go back and look at them. I mean, it was the first one, let's say Hacksaw one, the pay-per-view one, it was Big John Studd. 90 was Hulk Hogan. 91 was Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
92 is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, but this is the biggest Rumble till date because it's for a title. And then, we're going to go basically backstage, and, Ric Flair is going to give his big victory speech. I think we should stop here, Wax.
Yep.
And because I think, we'll end our show with maybe
you're right.
an audio of the Nature Boy and his
This
interview.
promo
But
deserves its own spot, and we won't ruin it. Is when Ric Flair gets crowned by Jack Tunney as the new World Wrestling Federation champion.
with a tear in my eye.
Yeah, that famous promo. So yeah, let's play that for everybody shortly. But Fash, did you enjoy watching that Rumble again?
I did, and it was a bit weird watching it like this. With the volume down and us talking about it, but it was a great trip down memory lane again, and just so many characters. I think you appreciate how great Ric Flair was in this match. He had an altercation with pretty much every single person in there. He did have an altercation with everyone in there, and it was lots of different styles, different characters. A pretty fast-paced match for the
Yep.
time. But what's your view? I mean, what do you think of it? Do you think it is the greatest Royal Rumble match after we've been through it?
I'm going to say what I said last time. It's the greatest Royal Rumble up till the Attitude Era, and then I think there are a couple that beat it. But in terms of star talent at this stage, I think it's probably the best.
It's probably the most star-studded, isn't it? Outside of,
and it's certainly it's still the one that's most remembered, regardless of any of this.
well, I was going to say that. I was going to say the most star-studded probably ever. My personal favorite, which shades this, is the 2001 Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
But there's reasons for that because it's Stone Cold, it's The Rock. The ending, Stone Cold wins. I was a big Stone Cold mark. Lots of amazing names. The Attitude Era was, basically in full swing.
Yep.
We're moving towards WrestleMania 17. But after that, I would probably say, the 1992, just for sheer Hall of Famers, Ric Flair's performance, the stakes, the fact that this was for the title, it was special, and a moment that people wouldn't have thought at the time that Ric Flair would win the ultimate prize. To be honest, Vince McMahon gave him the ultimate stage here.
He did.
Talk about him screwing over WCW, NW talent, but Ric Flair was somebody he did respect. And this match, what I want to say is, up to this point, if you'd been new to Ric Flair, you wouldn't really get what the fuss was about.
Mm-hmm.
The months leading up to this, they were okay. He's in the Survivor Series elimination match. He's not really in any other high-profile matches unless you're at the house shows where he's taking on Piper and Hogan. But this match exemplified, Ric Flair being one of the greatest. Many would say the greatest.
Yeah, certainly the star performer of this whole show and the Rumble match itself. Royal Rumble 1992. As you say, one of our favorite events of all time. So far,
And most people's favorites memories. So I think, I think, it's been good. Really enjoyed it. We were looking forward to this. This is now going to lead us into the rest of 1992, and lots of interesting things are going to happen. As you say, at this point, you're probably thinking, everybody thought the main event of WrestleMania is going to be Ric Flair against Hulk Hogan, but now something's happened with Sid. What's going to happen with Savage and Jake? Lots of questions. Piper's the Intercontinental Champion. Where's Bret Hart? But, really enjoyed it. And I think, we should close this show off now. It's been a unique listen only episode, a watch along. And I think we should end things with Ric Flair's post-victory promo, if we can. Wax.
well, with a tear in my eye, here it comes.
All right, by virtue of winning the Royal Rumble, we have a brand new World Wrestling Federation champion as the press watches on. At this time, to present the title belt to the new champion, our president, the distinguished Jack Tunney.
Congratulations, Ric Flair, on becoming the undisputed champion of the World Wrestling Federation.
Let me just say, after video distorting the belt to proclaim you the real world champion, I'm going to tell you all with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one. And this is the only title in the wrestling world that makes you number one. When you are the king of the WWE, you rule the world. Think about it like that, Mr. Perfect.
Guys,
the brave. Woo! Woo! Let's give a big one. Woo! You did it. I was never so impressed with anything I've ever seen in all my life. He went out there for over 60 minutes, never took a back step, took it to Hogan, took it to The Undertaker, took it to whoever got in that ring. That's why he is,
hey,
and
Bobby,
you can call him now, the real world heavyweight champion.
We're not the kind of guys to say, we told you so, but we told you so. Okay, very good. Ric Flair, you have made put that cigarette out. You have made World Wrestling Federation history here tonight.
It's the greatest moment of my life. I want to jump. I want to party. But I got to tell you like this. For the Hulk Hogans and the Macho Mans and the Pipers and the Sids, now it's Ric Flair. And y'all pay homage to the man. Woo! I love it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up. We hope you have enjoyed your Royal Rumble.